The world had grown quieter than usual. Not the ordinary quiet of evening, when the wind slows and animals tuck themselves into nests and burrows, but a different quiet, a stillness that pressed softly against every surface, every tree, every stone. The sun, usually so reliable in its rise and retreat, seemed hesitant, obscured, hesitant to stretch its light across the land. Morning did not come as expected. Instead, the horizon held a muted glow, the pale promise of daylight tempered by an unfamiliar dimness, as though the sky itself had decided to linger in a thoughtful pause. Villages stirred slowly. Smoke still rose from chimneys, but the air seemed heavier, carrying the scent of damp earth and frost, of wood smoldering just enough to ward off the chill. People moved cautiously, uncertain of what to expect. Animals behaved strangely. Chickens wandered with hesitant steps. Dogs lay close to hearths, and cats stretched lazily, but with sharper ears, listening. Even the wind seemed to whisper differently that day, brushing over thatched roofs and frozen fields in a rhythm that was hesitant, deliberate, almost conversational in its attention. In homes, families gathered by candlelight, for the sun was no longer a reliable companion. Breakfasts were delayed, tasks postponed. There was a sense that time had slowed. Each movement felt heavier, more deliberate. Pots clinked in kitchens where hands lingered over their work, and conversations carried in quiet tones, not from fear, but from a shared understanding that this day was unlike any other. Outside, frost clung stubbornly to window panes, reflecting faint candlelight, creating patterns that shifted slowly, hypnotically, as if the glass itself had become a miniature stage for an endless winter's ballet. The fields, once alive with early spring shoots, now stood uncertain. Crops hesitated beneath a thin layer of frost, leaning toward the light they could not feel. Farmers paused with hoes in hand, sensing something unusual in the rhythm of the day. Animals in the fields seemed aware, their movements deliberate, cautious. Horses stamped softly against the frozen earth, hooves sinking into mud and frost, while sheep huddled closer to the barns, waiting, their breath forming tiny clouds that merged with the cold, still air. Rivers and streams, usually lively with murmuring currents, seemed subdued. Water rippled lazily, reflecting the gray, muted sky above. Occasional leaves floated by, slow and ponderous, as if the flow itself had become reluctant, unsure of its purpose. The usual chorus of birdsong was absent. Occasionally, a crow would caw from a distant tree, its sound stark, lonely, echoing against the hills, only to be swallowed immediately by the thickened quiet. The day moved slowly, its pace dictated not by clocks or bells, but by the subtle, unsettling rhythm of a world waiting for light that refused to arrive. Inside towns, the markets were subdued. Merchants and shoppers moved through, stalls in muted tones, touching produce and textiles as if testing their presence in a world where normal sunlight no longer confirmed reality. Apples gleamed under the dim light, their skin almost phosphorescent, while grains and beans appeared shadowed, heavier than usual, as though gravity had quietly shifted. Conversations were hushed, laughter restrained, and children's play slowed to gentle, deliberate movements. Every gesture, every sound, carried with it a strange consciousness, the awareness that the sun's absence had rendered the ordinary into something otherworldly, an almost imperceptible disruption of the rhythm of life. The elderly, sitting by the fire in quiet contemplation, felt the weight of this day differently. Memories surfaced unbidden. Previous winters, harsh and cruel, storms that had tested patience and endurance, nights of hunger and cold, of waiting for warmth, for light, for the inevitability of dawn. They watched the faces of the young, noting the subtle confusion, the quiet questions forming in unspoken ways. Some whispered stories of omens and warnings from ancestors, tales that had been repeated across generations, stories that once seemed fanciful, but now carried the same weight as the frost-laden air. As hours passed, the sun's absence began to affect even the rhythm of the hearth. Fires, carefully tended, consumed wood slowly, almost reluctantly, as if mirroring the hesitation of daylight. Smoke formed gentle spirals, rising lazily toward the ceiling beams, curling into patterns that seemed to echo the stillness outside. The smell of burning wood mixed with the faint metallic scent of frost, creating a sensory memory that would linger in the minds of all who experienced it. A memory of a day where time itself had become a gentle, insistent whisper, rather than the bold, consistent force it was meant to be. Rivers and streams, usually lively with murmuring currents, seemed subdued. Water rippled lazily, reflecting the gray, muted sky above. Occasional leaves floated by, slow and ponderous, as if the flow itself had become reluctant, unsure of its purpose. The usual chorus of birdsong was absent. Occasionally, a crow would caw from a distant tree, its sound stark, lonely, echoing against the hills, only to be swallowed immediately by the thickened quiet. The day moved slowly, its pace dictated not by clocks or bells, but by the subtle, unsettling rhythm of a world waiting for light that refused to arrive. Inside towns, the markets were subdued. Merchants and shoppers moved through stalls in muted tones, touching produce and textiles as if testing their presence in a world where normal sunlight no longer confirmed reality. Apples gleamed under the dim light, their skin almost phosphorescent, while grains and beans appeared shadowed, heavier than usual, as though gravity had quietly shifted. Conversations were hushed, laughter restrained, and children's play slowed to gentle, deliberate movements. Gesture, every sound, carried with it a strange consciousness, the awareness that the sun's absence had rendered the ordinary into something otherworldly, an almost imperceptible disruption of the rhythm of life. The elderly, sitting by the fire in quiet contemplation, felt the weight of this day differently. Memories surfaced unbidden, previous winters harsh and cruel, storms that had tested patience and endurance, nights of hunger and cold, of waiting for warmth, for light, for the inevitability of dawn. They watched the faces of the young, noting the subtle confusion, the quiet questions forming in unspoken ways. Some whispered stories of omens and warnings from ancestors, tales that had been repeated across generations, stories that once seemed fanciful, but now carried the same weight as the frost-laden air. As hours passed, the sun's absence began to affect even the rhythm of the hearth. Fires, carefully tended, consumed wood slowly, almost reluctantly, as if mirroring the hesitation of daylight. Smoke formed gentle spirals, rising lazily toward the ceiling beams, curling into patterns that seemed to echo the stillness outside. The smell of burning wood mixed with the faint, metallic scent of frost, creating a sensory memory that would linger in the minds of all who experienced it, a memory of a day where time itself had become a gentle, insistent whisper, rather than the bold, consistent force it was meant to be. Evening fell differently than it ever had before. Darkness approached gradually, but without the comforting warmth of sunset. The horizon glowed dimly, a soft, muted gradient of gray and silver, lacking the golden promise that usually heralded nightfall. Villagers lit lamps, fires, and candles, creating pockets of warmth and light in homes and streets. Shadows danced gently against walls, blending with the subtle chill of a world that had momentarily paused its usual rhythm. People moved with a quiet grace, aware that this day, unlike others, required mindfulness, reflection, and the careful attention to both self and community. The night that followed was profound. It was a silence that felt complete, enveloping, almost sacred. The wind carried the sound of frozen trees creaking, distant animal calls, and the gentle movement of snowflakes drifting to the ground. Fires crackled softly, reflecting in the eyes of those gathered, creating a warmth that was both physical and emotional. The sky above, vast and heavy, seemed to stretch endlessly, holding the suspended breath of a world waiting, watching, enduring. As the long night unfolded, the world outside grew quieter still, though not lifeless. Snow drifted lazily from the sky, feather light settling over roofs, trees, and open fields. Each flake seemed deliberate, falling slowly as if the world itself had become mindful of every movement, every breath. The dim glow of lanterns and fires in villages reflected off the soft white blanket, creating halos of warm light that contrasted against the pale, muted cold. People moved with slow care, each step measured, as if hurrying would break the fragile rhythm of this unusual night. Families gathered closer to their fires, wrapped in woolen blankets and shawls, sharing warmth, stories, and hushed words. The absence of daylight made every small flame seem monumental, casting shadows that stretched and softened with each flicker. Children, often restless at this hour, lay still, their breathing slow and even, lulled by the gentle sounds of the night. The quiet whistle of wind through cracks in timber walls, the distant call of an owl, the soft shifting of snow on rooftops. Even those accustomed to sleep disturbances felt the calm pressing down upon them, a reminder that some nights were meant for quiet contemplation rather than activity. In the fields, farmers huddled near fires built from driftwood and twigs, their breath rising in clouds that mingled with the chill of the night. The animals they tended, horses, cows, sheep, clustered nearby, sensing both the cold and the unusual calm. Even in the darkness, the connection between human and animal was palpable, a shared endurance of a world slightly out of balance. Farmers murmured to their animals, soothing them, the words soft and rhythmic, almost a chant, blending with the quiet rustle of trees and the whisper of snow settling over the earth. Rivers and streams, slowed and heavy with ice, reflected the muted starlight and the silver haze of the sky. The gentle movement of water beneath thin layers of ice created soft, murmuring sounds, like whispered secrets of a world in quiet suspension. Occasionally, a fish disturbed the surface, sending ripples outward that spread slowly, disappearing almost imperceptibly against the reflective gray. These subtle sounds, once unnoticed in the busy day, became prominent, grounding, hypnotic, and calming for those who paused to listen. In the towns, the absence of sun reshaped perception. Streets that were usually bustling with vendors, children, and travelers were muted, almost dreamlike. Lanterns cast soft, golden pools of light that highlighted frost on windows and rooftops. People spoke quietly, their voices carrying less urgency, more thoughtfulness. Every gesture seemed slower, deliberate, and measured. Even the clink of coins or the creak of a door had a new significance, echoing in the stillness, reminding inhabitants of both presence and passage of time in a world subtly altered by the sun's absence. In homes, candles and fireplaces took on a new centrality. Their flames were not merely sources of light, but anchors, points of focus that gave shape to the darkness surrounding them. Shadows danced along walls, elongated and soft, creating intricate patterns that shifted with every breath of wind, every movement of hand or flick of cloth. Children watched these shapes, eyes half closed, mesmerized, letting their minds drift into the slow rhythm of shadow and flame. Adults, too, found themselves tracing the patterns, letting the movement soothe thoughts that otherwise would have raced in ordinary daylight hours. Throughout the night, the wind carried distant sounds from beyond the village. Soft hoots of owls, the muffled rustle of nocturnal animals, and the occasional snap of a frozen branch blended seamlessly with the intimate sounds of households. Even the far-off murmuring of a river or the gentle settling of snow on roofs added to the subtle symphony of night. These sounds, constant yet delicate, formed a rhythm that guided human awareness, pulling attention away from worry or planning, and instead into a meditative state, a slow embrace of the present moment. In some homes, storytellers took advantage of the unusual night to recount legends and memories. They spoke in measured tones, letting words stretch and pause naturally, interwoven with gentle gestures and the soft crackle of fire. Tales of past winters, distant lands, and ancestral wisdom filled the rooms, each story flowing into the next, as if the night itself demanded continuity and reflection. The cadence of language, combined with the soft glow of candlelight and the muffled quiet of the snowy night outside, created an environment almost hypnotic in its effect, lulling listeners into a state somewhere between attention and gentle sleep. Even the natural world seemed to participate in this nocturnal meditation. Trees swayed slightly, their branches coated in frost that caught the soft light of lanterns and stars. The snow underfoot shifted with subtle sounds, gentle and comforting, as if the earth itself were breathing slowly, in tandem with the humans who walked carefully upon it. Animals, attuned to the altered rhythm of light and temperature, moved with deliberate caution. Each movement was absorbed into the calm of the night, reinforcing the sense that the entire environment, human and non-human alike, existed in shared awareness and gentle coexistence. Throughout this long, surreal night, a sense of patience and endurance emerged. It was a night that invited reflection, that demanded mindfulness, that offered a rare opportunity to witness the subtle interplay of light, shadow, sound, and stillness. People lay awake in bed or sat quietly by fires, fully aware of the strange circumstances, but also comforted by the slow, hypnotic rhythm of survival. The absence of sun was not merely a physical condition. It became a lens through which all other aspects of life were subtly magnified. The warmth of a hearth, the steady breathing of a loved one, the gentle shift of snowflakes on rooftops. By the midnight hours, sleep settled over most homes like a soft, heavy blanket. Even those who could not fully close their eyes found themselves lulled into calm awareness, thoughts meandering slowly like rivers under ice. The absence of daylight had shifted priorities. Movement was measured, conversation was soft, and each breath was taken with quiet care. In these hours, life became meditative, every detail magnified, every sensation heightened, yet experienced with a gentle patience that invited rest rather than alarm. As the night deepened, the world outside seemed suspended in a delicate balance. Each sound, each movement was amplified by the unusual stillness. The wind, once insistent and cold, had softened into a gentle murmur that threaded through the skeletal branches of trees and the narrow gaps between houses. Snowflakes, unhurried and precise, spiraled downward like slow dancers in an eternal ballet, landing softly on the frozen ground. The world was quiet, yet alive, the kind of quiet that invites attention to even the smallest detail, the faintest whisper of motion. In the villages, the inhabitants had adapted to the peculiar darkness in subtle ways. Fire became more than a source of warmth or light. It was a focal point, a living companion to be watched, traced, and understood. Families clustered around hearths, sharing the heat and the comforting rhythm of flames. Children, lulled by the combination of warmth, slow storytelling, and the hypnotic cadence of crackling wood, drifted into slumber or remained half asleep, caught in the liminal space between wakefulness and dreams. The quiet was a blanket that stretched across rooftops, streets, and fields, folding the village into a single, slow heartbeat. The stillness of the night encouraged reflection and a new awareness of time. Without the guiding presence of sunlight, moments stretched indefinitely, each second elongated by attention and contemplation. People moved with deliberate care, whether crossing the icy courtyard, fetching water from a frozen stream, or carrying firewood back to their homes. Each step was measured, each gesture meaningful, as if the absence of the sun demanded a heightened consciousness of presence. Even ordinary actions, pouring water, tending to an animal, adjusting a blanket, were transformed into rituals of awareness, slow and deliberate. Beyond the village, the landscape mirrored this quiet intensity. Forests, typically animated by nocturnal creatures, and the whisper of wind through leaves, were subdued, the snow dampening sounds and cushioning motion. Shadows stretched long across fields and hills, softening edges, blending forms, creating landscapes that seemed almost painterly in their composition. Wolves and foxes, usually active under the cover of night, moved cautiously, their tracks leaving delicate imprints in the snow. Every living thing adjusted its rhythm to the overarching calm, a shared nocturnal meditation extending across species and terrain. By the midnight hours, those who remained awake found themselves drawn to the simplest sensory experiences: the warmth of a woolen blanket, the subtle taste of tea or broth, the rhythmic flicker of candlelight. All became profound in their intimacy and immediacy. Each sensation was magnified, experienced fully, as if the absence of daylight had heightened awareness and transformed the ordinary into the extraordinary. The world seemed to slow to match the internal rhythm of each observer, gentle synchronization between body, mind, and environment. Sounds, too, gained new significance in this suspended time. The creak of a timber floorboard, the distant call of an owl, the soft shifting of snow on rooftops, each became a marker, a gentle reminder of presence and continuity. Conversations were hushed, words elongated, pauses intentional, creating a cadence that mirrored the slow motion of the world outside. Stories told in these hours, whether tales of past winters, personal memories, or ancestral myths, carried weight and resonance, their impact amplified by the attentive, receptive audience. Every word, every gesture became part of the nocturnal tapestry. Animals in and around the villages adapted as well. Horses huddled in stables, their breaths forming small clouds in the icy air, ears flicking at faint disturbances. Cows and sheep clustered together for warmth, their movements coordinated almost instinctively. Domestic animals, especially cats and dogs, moved carefully through snow-laden yards, their presence a comforting rhythm against the broader silence. Even wild creatures, cautious and watchful, adjusted their behavior to match the slow cadence of the night, blending their instincts with the peculiar calm that had settled over the land. Inside homes, the play of shadows and light created an almost hypnotic environment. Flames flickered, elongating and contracting, casting dynamic forms across walls, ceilings, and furniture. The interplay of warmth and cold, movement and stillness, presence and absence created a sensory tapestry that drew attention inward, toward reflection, meditation, and the subtle awareness of existence. Every flicker of light, every sigh of wind through a cracked window contributed to an immersive nocturnal experience that was as much internal as external. Some villagers took this extraordinary night as an opportunity to explore creativity. Sketches, writings, and simple crafts were pursued by candlelight, each act slowed and considered. The absence of sunlight, rather than hindering activity, encouraged focus on subtle textures, colors, and shapes. Embroidery threads, the grain of wooden surfaces, the glint of metal in faint light, all became objects of fascination and meditative attention. The act of creation itself was transformed, slowed by circumstance, rendered more intimate, more conscious, and more mindful. As the hours continued, the night became increasingly introspective. Each individual, family, and community experienced a sense of temporality that was fluid rather than fixed. The absence of solar markers allowed time to expand, contract, and blend, making each action feel significant yet measured. Thoughts drifted, often unbidden, linking memories, hopes, and reflections. Sleep, when it came, was gentle and deep, a surrender to the rhythm of the night rather than an escape from wakefulness. Those awake found themselves attuned to the faint, persistent pulse of the world, a slow, living awareness that connected them to every corner of their surroundings. Inside homes, the play of shadows and light created an almost hypnotic environment. Flames flickered, elongating and contracting, casting dynamic forms across walls, ceilings, and furniture. The interplay of warmth and cold, movement and stillness, presence and absence created a sensory tapestry that drew attention inward, toward reflection, meditation, and the subtle awareness of existence. Every flicker of light, every sigh of wind through a cracked window contributed to an immersive nocturnal experience that was as much internal as external. Some villagers took this extraordinary night as an opportunity to explore creativity. Sketches, writings, and simple crafts were pursued by candlelight, each act slowed and considered. The absence of sunlight, rather than hindering activity, encouraged focus on subtle textures, colors, and shapes. Embroidery threads, the grain of wooden surfaces, the glint of metal in faint light, all became objects of fascination and meditative attention. The act of creation itself was transformed, slowed by circumstance, rendered more intimate, more conscious, and more mindful. As the hours continued, the night became increasingly introspective. Each individual, family, and community experienced a sense of temporality that was fluid rather than fixed. The absence of solar markers allowed time to expand, contract, and blend, making each action feel significant yet measured. Thoughts drifted, often unbidden, linking memories, hopes, and reflections. Sleep, when it came, was gentle and deep, a surrender to the rhythm of the night rather than an escape from wakefulness. Those awake found themselves attuned to the faint, persistent pulse of the world, a slow, living awareness that connected them to every corner of their surroundings. As the first faint hints of dawn approached, the world remained enshrouded in an ethereal gray. The sun, though present somewhere beyond the horizon, cast no light, no warmth, leaving the landscape suspended between night and day. Villagers stirred slowly, their movements deliberate, as if the very absence of sunlight had instructed the body to conserve energy, to move with care. The snow, still pristine and undisturbed, muffled footsteps, softening each sound into a gentle rhythm that echoed through empty streets and frozen fields. Even the wind seemed subdued, brushing lightly against eaves and tree branches, as if aware of the unusual pause in the natural order. Families prepared for the day with an almost ceremonial calm. Fires were stoked to warmth the home, water drawn from frozen wells, and meals prepared with deliberate attention. Breakfast, typically a rushed affair, became a slow meditation of aroma, texture, and warmth. The scent of porridge, sweetened with honey or herbs, mingled with the smoky scent of fires and the faint tang of frost, creating a layered sensory experience that invited mindfulness. Every act, cracking eggs, stirring pots, lifting kettle lids, was performed with care, each movement amplified by the stillness surrounding it. Outside, the villagers observed the unchanged sky with quiet curiosity. Birds, normally active at dawn, hesitated, chirping softly in confused intervals. Their feathers ruffled against the chill, and their wings flicked with tentative gestures, probing for light that had not arrived. Farm animals, sensing the disruption, huddled closer to warmth and shelter, leaning into each other for comfort. Even the wind seemed to whisper caution, rustling the snow-laden branches with a cautious patience that mirrored the awareness of those below. Each element of life adapted to the altered rhythm, engaging in a slow, collective negotiation with an unfamiliar world. The absence of sunlight transformed perception itself. Shadows lost their definition, merging with surrounding forms, creating a dreamlike environment where objects became subtly abstract. Buildings appeared softened at the edges, trees elongated and fused into the pale gray of sky and snow. The mind, accustomed to distinguishing forms through light and contrast, adjusted instinctively, focusing more intently, filling in gaps, imagining textures and contours that were not fully illuminated. It was a night lingering into day, a twilight extended across hours, shaping consciousness into something more attuned, more aware, and simultaneously more relaxed. Throughout the village, the unusual dawn encouraged reflection. Adults paused in tasks, listening to the soft symphony of a world in muted activity, the crunch of snow under careful feet, the occasional soft call of an animal, the rustle of branches swaying against light wind. The absence of natural light allowed subtle, often overlooked phenomena to stand out. The gentle curling of frost on windowsills, the intricate patterns of ice on the frozen stream, the glint of dew or frost on blades of grass and leaves. In these small details, the villagers found fascination, meditation, and quiet joy, their attention drawn to the minutiae of life rather than the grand march of day. Children, naturally attuned to wonder, moved cautiously through the snow-draped landscape. Their breath formed small clouds that merged with the haze of the frozen morning. Snowflakes clung to hair and clothing, sparkling in the faint gray light. They laughed quietly, speaking softly to one another in tones that matched the gentle rhythm of the day, careful not to disturb the pervasive calm. Play was slower, deliberate, and mindful, each game infused with observation and patience, a natural reflection of the unusual environment. The absence of sunlight transformed perception itself. Shadows lost their definition, merging with surrounding forms, creating a dreamlike environment where objects became subtly abstract. Buildings appeared softened at the edges, trees elongated and fused into the pale gray of sky and snow. The mind, accustomed to distinguishing forms through light and contrast, adjusted instinctively, focusing more intently, filling in gaps, imagining textures and contours that were not fully illuminated. It was a night lingering into day, a twilight extended across hours, shaping consciousness into something more attuned, more aware, and simultaneously more relaxed. Throughout the village, the unusual dawn encouraged reflection. Adults paused in tasks, listening to the soft symphony of a world in muted activity, the crunch of snow under careful feet, the occasional soft call of an animal, the rustle of branches swaying against light wind. The absence of natural light allowed subtle, often overlooked phenomena to stand out. The gentle curling of frost on windowsills, the intricate patterns of ice on the frozen stream, the glint of dew or frost on blades of grass and leaves. In these small details, the villagers found fascination, meditation, and quiet joy, their attention drawn to the minutiae of life rather than the grand march of day. Children, naturally attuned to wonder, moved cautiously through the snow-draped landscape. Their breath formed small clouds that merged with the haze of the frozen morning. Snowflakes clung to hair and clothing, sparkling in the faint gray light. They laughed quietly, speaking softly to one another in tones that matched the gentle rhythm of the day, careful not to disturb the pervasive calm. Play was slower, deliberate, and mindful, each game infused with observation and patience, a natural reflection of the unusual environment. As hours passed, a mystical awareness settled over the landscape. People spoke less of schedules, obligations, or hurried tasks. Instead, conversation centered on observation, reflection, and subtle appreciation. Even the most practical of activities, chopping wood, tending livestock, or cleaning homes, was performed in a reflective, almost ritualistic manner. The absence of sunlight provided a unique lens, emphasizing endurance, presence, and the inherent beauty in the smallest details of existence. A collective consciousness emerged, shaped not by urgency or distraction, but by the gentle rhythm of observation, patience, and quiet action. By midday, or what would have been midday, villagers had fully acclimated to the altered day. The gray, lightless environment encouraged introspection, contemplation, and subtle creativity. Children sketched patterns in snow, adults hummed gentle tunes while working, and fires burned slowly, rhythmically, providing warmth, light, and an anchor for attention. Every element of life, human and natural, had synchronized into the shared pace of the altered day, creating a meditative symphony of motion, sound, and awareness. As the hours waned toward the evening, the prolonged day maintained its serene cadence. The snow continued to fall in delicate layers, rivers murmured gently under ice, animals moved with careful grace, and villagers continued their mindful tasks. The absence of the sun, rather than creating chaos, had revealed an alternate rhythm of life, slower, quieter, more reflective. People recognized the fragility and beauty in these rhythms, understanding that even without light, life persisted, adapted, and found its own balance. As twilight approached, though indistinct in the gray, muted world, the village seemed to fold inward upon itself. Shadows, lacking the definition provided by sunlight, became soft curtains between spaces, hiding corners while revealing the gentle outlines of shapes. Doors, windows, and walls appeared less as boundaries and more as elements in a quiet, fluid landscape. The villagers, attuned now to this slow rhythm, moved with deliberate slowness, aware of every step, every gesture, every breath. Even simple acts, reaching for a ladle, stirring a pot, closing a shutter, felt significant, weighted with intention and consciousness. Inside homes, firelight provided the primary illumination, a warm, undulating glow that cast soft reflections on walls, floors, and faces. The flickering of flames created a gentle, hypnotic rhythm, a pulse to which eyes and minds naturally attuned. Smoke from the fires curled lazily upward, carrying the scent of burning wood and food, a complex aroma that mingled with the faint tang of frost infiltrating through gaps in doors and windows. The sensory tapestry was intricate yet soothing, a quiet meditation for those present, grounding attention in the simple pleasures of warmth, nourishment, and human presence. Children, now grown familiar with the absence of sun, embraced the slower rhythm in their own way. They played softly, using their imagination to fill the gray, undefined spaces with gentle adventures. Tiny hands molded snow into careful shapes. Delicate constructions were created with snow, sticks, and small stones, each sculpture a quiet testament to creativity in constrained conditions. Their laughter, low and measured, seemed to harmonize with the muted environment, blending seamlessly into the gentle rustling of trees, the distant murmur of rivers, and the soft whisper of wind across rooftops. In the village square, a subtle, collective awareness had settled among adults. Conversations flowed more gently, words measured, tones lowered in deference to the calm. Discussions of work, trade, and daily obligations became interspersed with observations of nature's altered rhythm. The frost on the eaves, one might note softly, looks like lace spun from silver threads, prompting reflection and quiet acknowledgement. Such remarks, simple and unhurried, encouraged a shared focus on beauty, detail, and attentiveness, reinforcing a collective sense of presence and mindfulness. Animals, too, participated in this slowed rhythm. Horses in yards shifted cautiously in the frost, nostrils flaring as they tested the cold air. Chickens huddled close, feathers fluffed for warmth, pecking gently at patches of exposed grain. Cats moved silently, their steps careful, deliberate, each movement precise. Dogs padded with restraint, sniffing the air, exploring corners with gentle curiosity. Predators in nearby woods adjusted hunting patterns, stalking with patience rather than urgency. Every being, human and animal, alike synchronized to the quiet pulse of the lightless day, coexisting in a rhythm defined not by the sun, but by subtle observation and conscious adjustment. As the afternoon waned into the ambiguous evening, villagers turned attention to ritual and reflection. Meals were prepared slowly, each ingredient handled with care, textures and aromas acknowledged before combining. The act of cooking, normally a mundane chore, became meditative, kneading dough, chopping root vegetables, stirring stews in heavy cauldrons over flickering flames. The soundscape, soft clinks of pots, the hiss of steam, the occasional murmur of conversation, blended into a gentle, calming background. Eating, when it came, was deliberate, mindful, a slow communion with nourishment itself, allowing participants to savor warmth, taste, and satiety in equal measure. The forest surrounding the village held its own hypnotic rhythm. Trees swayed softly, branches bending under the weight of frost and snow, producing faint, creaking whispers that mingled with distant calls of wildlife. Deer moved cautiously through the underbrush, their hooves leaving precise, shallow impressions in the snow. Squirrels scampered, careful not to disturb the fragile stillness. Even the wind, which had grown gentler as the day progressed, carried a soft melody through the branches, a continuous, undulating hum that harmonized with human activity below, reinforcing the shared cadence of patience, observation, and quiet endurance. By mid-evening, the villagers had developed a delicate synchronization with the altered environment. Tasks that typically demanded haste were now undertaken with deliberate slowness. Mending clothes, sharpening tools, tending fires, and preparing homes for nightfall became exercises in mindful attention. The absence of sunlight, once a potential cause of discomfort or disorientation, now served as an invisible conductor, orchestrating a unified rhythm across the landscape. Each human and animal action reinforced the calm, steady heartbeat of life in a world suspended between night and day. As darkness deepened, indistinct and gentle rather than harsh and absolute, candlelight and firelight became the primary sources of illumination. Flames flickered, shadows stretched and shrank with hypnotic regularity, and the warm glow cast subtle patterns on walls, furniture, and the frozen ground outside. Every element of perception became accentuated: the texture of wood, the pattern of frost on a window pane, the movement of smoke through air. Villagers observed with heightened awareness, their senses alert but relaxed, the mind embracing the interplay of light and shadow as both a guide and a comfort. Evening gatherings, small and intimate, emerged as moments of reflection and connection. Families shared stories, softly spoken, voices modulating to complement the gentle environment. Tales of past winters, of ancestors, of quiet triumphs and daily lessons were recounted slowly, deliberately. Children listened with rapt attention, absorbing details with care, participating occasionally with quiet questions or gentle observations. The absence of the sun encouraged a focus inward, emphasizing the warmth of human companionship over the distractions of broader activity. As night progressed, sleep itself was approached with deliberate mindfulness. Beds were prepared carefully, blankets fluffed, fire maintained at a low, steady glow, and homes sealed gently against the chill. The soundscape, snow settling, occasional animal movement, soft crackle of dying embers, served as a lullaby, guiding the mind toward rest. Breath became slower, more measured, muscles relaxed in the rhythm of preparation and anticipation. Conscious attention to small details, to warmth, scent, and gentle motion, reinforced a sense of security and serenity, preparing body and mind for the restorative process of sleep. Beyond the village, the frozen landscape retained a subtle, meditative energy. Rivers murmured beneath ice, trees shimmered with frost, and mountains loomed quietly in the distance, their peaks softened by snow and shadow. Even without sunlight, the world maintained a quiet balance, a delicate equilibrium of movement, stillness, and muted sound. Those who paused to observe, to breathe, and to reflect discovered a deep connection with the natural world, a sense of continuity and stability even in the absence of the day's guiding light. As the night deepened further, the villagers embraced the unique lull of this extraordinary day. Every act, every movement, every breath became a meditation, folding blankets, checking fires, offering gentle words, listening to soft ambient sounds, attending quietly to the needs of animals, neighbors, and self. The altered rhythm shaped a collective awareness, a shared consciousness of life in balance, alive yet slowed, alert yet at rest. In this suspended time, every detail was amplified, every sensation heightened, and every moment became a gentle meditation on presence, care, and survival. As the deepest hours of the night unfolded, the village seemed to exist in a world suspended between moments, where time itself was softened, stretched, and slowed. The absence of sunlight created a serene ambiguity, a gentle in-between space where shadows merged seamlessly with the faint glows of fires and lanterns. Every object, every surface, every texture became more pronounced, yet softened by the muted light. Frost on window panes glimmered like crystalline lace, and the distant silhouettes of trees and rooftops melted into one another in a delicate dance of form and shadow. Those who moved through this world did so with heightened awareness, their senses gently attuned to the nuances of the environment, aware of the soft rhythm of their own heartbeat and breath. Inside the village homes, the firelight became an intimate companion, casting long, languid shadows that stretched across floors, walls, and ceilings. Smoke curled lazily upward, carrying the faint scent of burning wood, herbs, and simmering meals, a fragrance that blended with the crispness of frost that seeped through doors and window frames. Every movement, stirring a pot, fetching a piece of wood, arranging blankets, was deliberate, careful, and unhurried. The villagers moved in a synchronized rhythm dictated not by clocks or schedules, but by the natural cadence of the night, guided by attention and patience. Their footsteps, soft against wooden floors or packed snow, were a quiet chorus harmonizing with the world around them. Animals, ever sensitive to the subtle changes of the environment, mirrored this calm attentiveness. Horses shifted their weight slowly, careful not to slip on icy ground. Cats prowled with deliberate grace, ears twitching at the faintest sound. Chickens huddled together, feathers fluffed against the chill, while dogs padded quietly across yards, noses close to the earth, sniffing the still, frozen air. In nearby forests, deer moved with soft precision, every hoof fall measured. Even the nocturnal predators adapted to this unique rhythm, stalking with patience rather than urgency, blending seamlessly with the quiet world around them. Each living being, from the smallest sparrow to the tallest human, participated in the collective meditation of existence, attuned to the delicate pulse of life in suspended time. As midnight deepened, villagers embraced gentle rituals designed to foster calm, reflection, and connection. Families gathered in warm rooms, sharing quiet stories, soft laughter, and low, soothing voices. Tales of ancestors, seasonal traditions, and subtle wisdom passed down through generations were recounted slowly, with care given to each word, each pause, each inflection. Children, now familiar with the tranquil rhythm of this day, listened attentively, absorbing not only the narrative, but the meditative cadence of storytelling itself. In these moments, the boundary between listener and storyteller blurred. Attention and presence became a shared experience, uniting all participants in a quiet, communal consciousness. Meals, prepared and consumed with mindfulness, became exercises in sensory awareness. Ingredients were handled deliberately, textures noted, and aromas inhaled with gentle appreciation. The act of cooking transformed into meditation, kneading dough, chopping vegetables, stirring stews over steady flames. The sounds of preparation, the faint clink of utensils, the soft hiss of simmering liquids, the murmur of voices, interwove into a harmonious background, creating a calming auditory landscape. Eating was slow and intentional, each bite savored, each sensation noticed, reinforcing a connection to nourishment, warmth, and the grounding rhythm of life. Beyond the homes, the natural world contributed its own meditative qualities. Trees, frosted and luminous, swayed gently in the faint breeze. Rivers murmured beneath sheets of ice, producing soft, continuous tones that echoed through the valley. Snow, unbroken and pristine, reflected and diffused light, creating subtle variations in brightness that shifted gradually with every flicker of flame or movement of the wind. Wildlife adapted seamlessly, moving with caution and grace, participating in a nocturnal ballet that echoed the village's deliberate rhythm. The interconnectedness of humans, animals, and nature became palpably clear, a quiet testament to the harmony achievable when urgency is replaced by mindfulness. As the night stretched onward, the villagers' attention extended to subtle phenomena often unnoticed in the rush of ordinary days. Frost patterns on windows resembled intricate, delicate artistry, each design unique, a fleeting gift to those who pause to observe. The play of shadows cast by candlelight produced ever-shifting tapestries across walls, creating a visual symphony of form, movement, and depth. Tiny cracks in floors and walls, the soft unevenness of pathways, and the gentle sway of furniture all became part of a conscious tapestry, each element contributing to the meditative quality of the night. Awareness of these small details enhanced patience, focus, and the quiet pleasure of simply existing in the present. Even the passage of time, usually marked by the movement of the sun, now felt fluid, elastic, and subjective. Villagers measured hours by the flicker of flames, the deepening of frost, and the soft patterns of snow drift across the landscape. Sleep, once an automatic response to darkness, became a gradual transition, approached with deliberate care. Beds were arranged with precision, blankets fluffed, fires maintained at low, steady warmth, and windows carefully shuttered against the chill. Breathing slowed naturally, muscles relaxed, and minds surrendered to the steady rhythm of the night, each villager attuning their internal pulse to the soft external cadence. In these hours, reflection and contemplation deepened. Thoughts drifted slowly, unhurried by the urgency of daylight, activity. Memories, aspirations, and imaginings surfaced gently, each idea considered and acknowledged without pressure or expectation. The environment, in its softened, quiet state, encouraged introspection, patience, and presence. The villagers became participants in a living meditation, their consciousness stretching outward to include their surroundings and inward to encompass their own awareness, bridging the gap between self and world in subtle, harmonious ways. As dawn approached, still distant yet hinted at by the faintest change in the air's texture, the village remained wrapped in tranquility. Frost and snow glimmered with a soft, ethereal light, while the faint hum of nocturnal life continued its gentle rhythm. Every sound, movement, and sensation reinforced a shared, deliberate attentiveness. The absence of sun had not created chaos or fear. Instead, it had fostered a collective, calm engagement with life, a deeper appreciation for warmth, companionship, and the subtle beauty of existence. Each individual, human and animal alike, had moved through the night with measured grace, participating in a profound, silent meditation on survival, awareness, and presence. As the faintest glow of dawn began to seep into the horizon, the village remained in a delicate balance between night and day, a liminal space where shadow and light met in a quiet dance. The air, still crisp from hours of frost and snow, carried the soft scent of wood smoke, cold earth, and distant pine. Every surface sparkled faintly under the early light, each crystal of frost reflecting the subtle warmth of a sun yet to rise fully. The villagers, still nestled in their homes, were aware of the gradual shift around them, sensing the approach of day without the need for urgency. The rhythm of the natural world remained slow, measured, and gentle, a silent invitation to awaken gradually, thoughtfully, with care for every movement and thought. Inside the cottages, the morning preparations unfolded with deliberate slowness. Families stirred, not in haste, but with mindful attention. The scraping of chairs, the shifting of blankets, the gentle opening of doors and windows produced a muted symphony, harmonizing with the distant murmur of a waking village. Children stretched, yawned, and rubbed sleepy eyes, each action measured, each breath deep and intentional. Elders, wrapped in layered blankets or woolen shawls, rose with careful grace, their motions reflecting years of familiarity with the rhythm of both night and day. Every movement was an acknowledgement of the environment, a conscious step in a day that demanded awareness and patience. Breakfast, prepared with care and attention, became an extension of the meditative night. Ingredients were chosen thoughtfully, each piece washed, sliced, and arranged with care. The sound of water bubbling in kettles, the faint crackle of embers, and the soft clink of utensils created a subtle auditory texture that mirrored the natural cadence outside. Meals were shared quietly, each participant attentive to taste, texture, and aroma, savoring not just sustenance, but the gentle ritual of nourishment itself. Conversation, if it arose, was low and reflective, interspersed with pauses that allowed for contemplation, the kind of silence that enriched rather than interrupted connection. The village streets, slowly coming to life, revealed a world transformed by frost, snow, and the gradual touch of sunlight. Footsteps left temporary imprints in pristine snow, each track a fleeting testament to human presence in a calm, deliberate environment. Animals, too, became part of this awakening. Horses stretched and shook off frost. Birds flitted cautiously between trees and rooftops, and dogs trotted lightly across frozen paths. Every element, animate or inanimate, seemed attuned to the subtle shift of the day, responding not with haste, but with gentle adaptation, participating in a choreography of quiet, mindful awakening. Work began not in the chaos of urgency, but in the rhythm of deliberate attention. Farmers tended to livestock with care, brushing, feeding, and checking for signs of distress or discomfort. Woodcutters moved in synchronized, measured strokes, ensuring each swing of the axe was intentional and balanced. Cooks, bakers, and craftspeople engaged in tasks with mindfulness, aware of the interplay between skill, environment, and outcome. Every task, no matter how mundane, became an opportunity to engage fully with the present moment, a practice in patience, precision, and awareness. The environment itself provided subtle lessons in observation and calm. Snow reflected sunlight in ways that shifted with every passing cloud, casting ever-changing shadows across fields, rooftops, and pathways. Frost patterns on window panes continued to evolve, intricate and delicate, offering fleeting glimpses of natural artistry. Streams gurgled beneath thin layers of ice, their murmurs a continuous, soothing background. The faint rustle of leaves in the morning breeze, the distant call of birds, and the occasional clink of tools or utensils formed a soundscape that encouraged presence and reflection. Observing these subtleties became a practice in attentiveness, reinforcing the interconnectedness of life, environment, and human perception. As the morning deepened, light and warmth gradually entered every space. Sunbeams penetrated windows and doorways, casting long golden streaks across floors and walls. Frost began to melt, releasing its crystalline hold on leaves, grass, and rooftops, revealing textures and colors hidden beneath the winter layer. Shadows shortened and softened, integrating with the light in harmonious transitions. In response, the villagers adjusted their movements, their routines gradually accelerating, but never abandoning mindfulness. Each task remained deliberate, every interaction measured, reflecting the ongoing meditation of existence in the rhythm of day-to-day life. The day offered an expanded awareness of community and cooperation. Tasks that required collaboration, fetching water, repairing structures, tending to livestock, were approached with shared intention and careful communication. Each participant moved with awareness not only of their own actions, but of the needs and rhythms of others. Guidance was given with patience, work distributed according to ability, and accomplishments celebrated with quiet acknowledgement rather than noisy fanfare. This social mindfulness reinforced the village's cohesion, creating a collective consciousness attuned to rhythm, timing, and the quiet joys of shared life. Even during moments of exertion, the villagers maintained attention to breath, posture, and energy. Farmers paused after every swing, woodcutters slowed between strokes, and bakers inhaled deeply as they kneaded dough. Movement became a meditation, a practice in presence, patience, and care. Each task, no matter how repetitive, carried the weight of intentionality, turning ordinary labor into an act of mindfulness. The physical sensations of warmth, strain, and touch were observed and appreciated, creating a rich, tactile awareness that anchored the mind in the present moment. By mid-morning, the village had fully transitioned from the meditative quiet of night into the calm productivity of day. Yet the pace remained unhurried, deliberate, and attentive. Tasks continued with care, animals moved with gentle precision, and interactions between villagers were conscious and considered. Every action, from the smallest adjustment of a blanket to the heaviest swing of an axe, contributed to a collective rhythm, a shared understanding of life's delicate balance. The environment responded in kind, with light, sound, and texture continuously shifting, creating a dynamic, living backdrop to the unfolding day. Throughout this time, the villagers maintained connection to both the past and the future. Knowledge of seasonal cycles, ancestral wisdom, and environmental patterns informed decisions and guided action. Awareness of potential dangers, harsh weather, unstable structures, or health concerns was balanced with attention to immediate tasks, ensuring preparedness without anxiety. Every choice reflected a blend of experience, observation, and intention, reinforcing the practice of mindful engagement in all aspects of life. In this way, the village thrived not through speed or force, but through deliberate presence, reflection, and care. As the day progressed toward noon, light continued to reveal subtle details previously unnoticed. Patterns in the snow and frost, textures of wood, stone, and fabric, and the interplay of shadow and illumination all contributed to a rich visual tapestry. Villagers observed these details with gentle attentiveness, incorporating observations into work, movement, and reflection. The environment, in its nuanced and responsive complexity, became both teacher and companion, reinforcing patience, mindfulness, and the profound interconnectedness of all living and non-living elements. Awareness of these subtleties cultivated a sense of awe, gratitude, and calm, providing a continuous thread of serenity woven throughout the day. By early afternoon, the rhythm of the village had reached a gentle, steady cadence. Tasks continued with intention, but the pace now carried a subtle vitality, a reminder that life persists even in quiet reflection. Light shifted slowly across rooftops and cobblestone paths, illuminating textures of wood, stone, and earth, and casting patterns that seemed almost deliberate in their complexity. Every step, every gesture, became an exercise in awareness, a meditation that connected body, mind, and environment. The villagers moved as if they were part of a living mosaic, each individual thread weaving seamlessly into the greater design of daily life. Children, while still attentive to the calm rhythm of the village, began to engage in their gentle play. Snowballs rolled slowly across frost-touched fields, tracing arcs that mirrored the curves of the hills. Tiny footprints formed patterns in the snow, a quiet testimony to exploration tempered with observation. Laughter, soft and restrained, punctuated the stillness, blending with the ambient sounds of wind, distant water, and the occasional clink of tools. Even in play, there was mindfulness. Games were unhurried, interactions considerate, and curiosity expressed through careful observation rather than reckless impulse. The artisans and craftsmen, meanwhile, devoted themselves to skillful creation. Wood was carved, metal shaped, and cloth woven with deliberate attention, each movement measured, each sound harmonizing with the overall serenity of the village. Tools were handled not merely as instruments of production, but as extensions of human intention, transmitting focus, patience, and care into the objects being crafted. The subtle scrape of blade against wood, the rhythmic hammering of metal, and the gentle tug of thread through fabric all contributed to a living symphony of creation, reinforcing the intimate connection between human effort and the tangible world. Meanwhile, nature itself continued to participate in the day's unfolding, responding to the interplay of light, temperature, and human presence. Birds flitted between branches, occasionally settling to preen or chirp, their songs delicate and measured. Trees swayed with a languid grace, branches brushing against one another to create a soft rustling. Streams glimmered under sunlight, their movements gentle yet constant, a reminder of flow, patience, and quiet persistence. Animals grazed or prowled with careful attentiveness, mindful of terrain and the presence of humans, further blending the rhythm of life with the consciousness of observation and care. By mid-afternoon, the villagers often paused for moments of reflection, acknowledging the cumulative efforts of the day. Hands were washed in icy streams or carefully brushed clean of sawdust and soil. Breath was taken deliberately, filling lungs with crisp, cool air, and exhaled slowly, releasing tension and fostering presence. Children paused mid-step, artisans set down tools, and elders leaned against walls or tree trunks, eyes closed for a brief meditation. These pauses, though subtle and often unnoticed by the casual observer, reinforced the harmony of the day, embedding a deeper sense of calm, gratitude, and connection within the collective consciousness of the village. Meals prepared at this hour carried the same intention as those in the morning, but were richer, more elaborate, reflecting both the efforts of the day and the generosity of time. Ingredients were layered thoughtfully, combining flavors and textures with care. The clink of bowls and the murmur of gentle conversation provided a soft, comforting accompaniment. Eating was not rushed. Each bite became an opportunity to taste fully, to appreciate subtle flavors and textures, and to practice mindful awareness of nourishment and sustenance. Food was not merely fuel, but a means of connecting with the rhythms of life, of honoring the work of both humans and nature in creating sustenance. Throughout the village, work continued in a coordinated but unhurried fashion. Fields were tended with awareness of soil, weather, and the needs of each plant. Animals were fed, brushed, and guided through their routines with care, every action precise and deliberate. Craftspeople moved through workshops with an acute awareness of movement, sound, and interaction, creating a sense of flow that elevated ordinary labor into artful practice. Even chores such as sweeping, mending, or tending fires were conducted with mindfulness, each small act an expression of presence, focus, and care. As afternoon faded into the soft golden hues of early evening, shadows lengthened across the village, shifting in a slow, graceful dance. Light and darkness intertwined, creating a liminal space where reflection became natural, almost unavoidable. The ambient sounds of day softened, birds began to settle, livestock moved more slowly, and the gentle murmur of human activity transitioned into quieter, more deliberate forms. The villagers responded to these changes with subtle adjustments in movement, posture, and activity, aligning themselves with the natural rhythm and reinforcing the ongoing practice of attentive presence. Evening rituals carried a quiet reverence, whether tending hearths, preparing evening meals, or caring for animals. Fires were stoked carefully, the smell of burning wood blending with the faint aroma of herbs, smoke, and cooking food. Candles were lit, flickering softly and casting shadows that danced in harmony with the last rays of sunlight. Windows were opened or closed with gentle care, allowing circulation of crisp air while retaining warmth. Every action was measured, considered, and deliberate, preserving the balance of warmth, light, and calm that defined the village at this transitional hour. Social interaction during this time was similarly intentional. Conversations were conducted in hushed tones, with attention to tone, cadence, and emotional resonance. Stories were shared slowly, with pauses for reflection and interjections for questions or clarifications. The communal experience reinforced the rhythm of the village, ensuring that connection, understanding, and cooperation were maintained without haste or disruption. Even disagreements, when they arose, were addressed with patience, clarity, and mutual respect, creating an environment where human relationships were nurtured gently and intentionally. As twilight deepened, stars began to emerge in the crisp night sky. Their faint glimmers, first hesitant, then gradually more pronounced, mirrored the gradual transition of the day into night. Moonlight softened the landscape, lending a gentle silver hue to snow, rooftops, and trees. Shadows became longer, yet less distinct, blending seamlessly with the muted light. The ambient sounds of evening, wind, distant calls of nocturnal birds, and faint rustle of leaves created a soothing, continuous backdrop for reflection and preparation for night. Villagers moved deliberately, aligning their final tasks with the natural cadence of darkening light, ensuring both safety and tranquility. By nightfall, homes were ready to receive their occupants in comfort and warmth. Fireplaces glowed steadily, blankets were arranged thoughtfully, and meals were consumed with mindfulness. Sleep preparations followed a similar rhythm, with tasks executed carefully, movement slowed, and attention directed to both bodily comfort and mental calm. Every action, from extinguishing candles to securing doors, was part of a larger practice of attentiveness, ensuring that nightfall was met not with anxiety or chaos, but with deliberate serenity. The village existed in a balance of human presence, natural rhythm, and the quiet power of mindful awareness, each element reinforcing the others in a continuous, unbroken thread. Night in the village settled with a quiet authority, a gentle cloak of darkness that softened edges, muffled distant sounds, and lent a mysterious grace to familiar surroundings. Moonlight shimmered on frost-laden rooftops, illuminating delicate patterns of ice on windows and the subtle contours of cobblestone paths. The air, crisp and still, carried a delicate fragrance, a blend of smoke from hearths, distant pine from surrounding forests, and the faint, sweet scent of winter herbs drying in cottages. Even in darkness, life persisted, though in a quieter, more deliberate rhythm that invited attentiveness and reflection. The villagers moved with a hushed awareness. Children, now calm and drowsy, settled into beds, blankets tucked snugly around small bodies, breaths slow and even. The soft rustle of sheets, the occasional sigh, and the rhythmic cadence of inhalation and exhalation became the village's nocturnal music. Parents lingered at their doorways, whispering gentle reassurances, straightening covers, or brushing hair from foreheads. Their movements were unhurried, purposeful, a continuation of the mindful rhythm that had defined the day. Even the smallest gesture, whether a hand pressed to a forehead or a whispered lullaby, resonated with intentionality, connecting caregiver and child in a seamless flow of presence. Within the homes, fireplaces glowed steadily, their warmth radiating outward in measured waves. Flames danced and flickered, throwing elongated shadows that stretched across walls, revealing textures of wood, stone, and fabric. Smoke curled lazily, carrying the aroma of burning logs, infused occasionally with herbs or fragrant pine. The dance of light and shadow created a subtle, hypnotic rhythm, a visual lullaby that encouraged stillness. Sitting by the fire, villagers often engaged in quiet reflection. Thoughts wandered through the day's events, memories of past winters surfaced, and dreams began to form gently at the edge of consciousness. Outside, the night was alive with a softer, subtler pulse. Snowflakes drifted silently, accumulating in delicate layers, each one unique, each adding to the tapestry of winter's serenity. Branches, heavy with frost, swayed gently in the faint breeze, producing a rustling whisper that harmonized with the distant gurgle of a partially frozen stream. Animal life continued in its nocturnal rhythm. Owls glided silently through the trees. Foxes padded across open fields, and small rodents scurried beneath snow-laden shrubs. Each sound, subtle yet distinct, contributed to a living symphony of the night, a delicate counterpoint to human activity. Hearths across the village emitted soft, golden light through windows, revealing silhouettes of inhabitants engaged in their evening rituals. Meals were finished, dishes cleaned with careful attention, and simple, essential tasks completed with deliberation. Tools, once in constant motion, rested now in deliberate arrangement, prepared for the morrow. Windows were closed or shuttered with gentle care, doors latched securely, and fires maintained at steady warmth. Every action reinforced safety, comfort, and calm, creating a seamless transition from day to night. Within homes, quiet conversations persisted, intimate and subdued. Elders shared stories of long-ago winters, lessons of patience and endurance, or tales of courage and resilience. children listened attentively, their eyes wide yet heavy with fatigue, absorbing both the narrative and the underlying rhythms of calm reflection. Laughter, when it appeared, was soft and melodic, weaving through the shadows of candlelight. Even moments of correction, gentle guidance, or encouragement were delivered with a sense of intention, reinforcing both respect and connection. The rhythm of the night extended to personal practices. Hands were washed in lukewarm water, drawn from carefully preserved sources. Faces brushed gently, garments folded or draped thoughtfully to maintain order. Each small act became a ritual, embedding mindfulness into ordinary behavior. Villagers moved through these rituals with deliberate attention, each gesture reinforcing calm, presence, and an awareness of the interconnectedness of human effort, environment, and the natural cycle of day into night. As darkness deepened, the village settled further into slumber. Windows reflected faint flickers of firelight, occasionally interrupted by the passing of a figure moving with quiet purpose. Cats prowled the alleys with attentive stealth, their soft paw steps blending with the subdued sounds of night. A distant dog barked once, a single, measured sound that rippled through the stillness. The wind whispered gently, brushing rooftops and treetops, carrying flakes of snow in its path. Even in the apparent stillness, life continued in measured cadence, a quiet chorus of existence that extended beyond human perception. In the center of the village, the communal fire burned low, maintained by a few attentive hands. Its warmth radiated outward, a reassuring presence for those still awake or tending animals. Sparks rose and fell in slow, graceful arcs, disappearing into the night sky. The glow illuminated the faces of those nearby, casting a gentle, golden light on features relaxed in contemplation, thought, or quiet conversation. Here, the night was experienced collectively, yet individually, each participant in the rhythm of darkness aware of their role in maintaining both life and serenity. The night's beauty was not only in visible light or sound, but in subtle perception. Breath, warmth, and the gentle pressure of gravity against the body became amplified in awareness. Even the faintest sounds, a footstep on a wooden floor, the shift of a blanket, or the distant murmur of the stream, assumed a quiet prominence, drawing attention and fostering reflection. This heightened perception, cultivated through daily practice and mindful living, transformed ordinary nocturnal experiences into moments of calm meditation. By midnight, the village had assumed a state of near-perfect equilibrium. Firelight glowed, shadows danced, snow continued its gentle accumulation, and the rhythms of human, animal, and natural life intertwined seamlessly. Sleep, when it came, was deep, untroubled, and restorative, a testament to the care, intention, and mindfulness cultivated throughout the day. The village, in every detail and interaction, exemplified the integration of rhythm, attention, and presence, a living illustration of the harmony possible when daily life is approached with awareness, patience, and deliberate care. The night deepened further, folding the village into an almost tactile darkness. Every roofline, every tree branch, every icy window pane seemed softened by the accumulation of snow, each detail transformed by moonlight into something ethereal, almost unreal. The air, crisp and dry, carried the faint scent of smoke, softened herbs, and frost, a combination that both awakened the senses and invited them to relax. Even standing still, one could feel the subtle pull of winter, the gentle chill in the air, the weight of thick blankets, the soothing warmth of bodies and hearths, all conspiring to slow thought and movement. Inside the homes, night rituals continued in whispered cadence. The soft hum of lullabies, the faint scrape of chairs, the careful folding of garments, each action a thread in the gentle tapestry of stillness. Children lay nestled in straw mattresses, feather-stuffed or wool-lined blankets cocooning them in warmth. Their breathing was steady, rhythmic, a soft drumbeat that merged with the ambient sounds of the night. The whisper of wind through pines, the distant murmur of running water beneath ice, and the occasional crackle of a dying fire. Each sound, though subtle, became part of a meditative symphony, an orchestrated lullaby that encouraged calm and focus on the present. Outside, the snow continued its quiet descent. Each flake was a unique work of natural artistry, landing softly, settling on rooftops, hedges, and narrow paths with a delicate precision. The street lamps, few and flickering, cast long, soft beams through the falling flakes, creating a visual rhythm akin to the gentle pulse of a heartbeat. Trees bowed beneath the weight of winter's burden, swayed gently, and every movement produced a whisper that resonated in the still air. Even the smallest sounds, footsteps in the snow, a door closing, the distant call of an owl, took on amplified clarity, a reminder that stillness does not mean inactivity, that life continues even in silence. In the open fields surrounding the village, night creatures moved with quiet grace. Foxes traced their hidden paths, leaving delicate tracks in the fresh snow. Rabbits and hares nestled beneath hedgerows, ears twitching with acute awareness of the faintest vibrations. Owls circled silently, their wide eyes reflecting moonlight as they searched for prey. Even the subtle shift of snow under wind's gentle push became a part of the living rhythm of the night, a reminder that life continues in ways both seen and unseen. Within the homes, the warmth of fire radiated outward, embracing inhabitants with a constant, comforting presence. The flicker of flames threw gentle shadows across walls, elongating familiar objects into soft, hypnotic patterns. Families gathered, not in boisterous activity, but in quiet connection, a whispered story, the folding of garments, the careful preparation of bedding. Each action was deliberate, unhurried, and imbued with mindfulness. Conversation, when it appeared, was low, melodic, and soothing, a natural counterpoint to the rhythmic ambiance of wind, snow, and fire. Hearths were tended with care. Logs were added slowly, embers stirred gently to maintain an even heat, and the soft crackle and hiss of flames provided a constant auditory anchor. Smoke curled upward in lazy spirals, carrying the scent of pine, birch, or dried herbs, and the shifting light created a dynamic, ever-changing tableau. Shadows softened corners, revealing textures of stone and wood with subtle grace. Each detail of the interior world, from the worn timbers of furniture to the carefully folded linens, became part of an extended meditation on warmth, presence, and the gentle art of inhabiting space with attention. Nighttime extended beyond human dwellings, encompassing barns, pastures, and outlying structures. Animals settled into their dens, stalls, and pens with a quiet patience, each exhalation visible in the icy air. Horses, cows, goats, and chickens adapted to the darkness, their breath misting in pale clouds. Even the distant bark of a dog, or the occasional squawk of a startled bird, added a layer of texture to the nocturnal symphony. Life, though slowed, continued in steady, unbroken rhythm, illustrating the interconnectivity of human and animal existence in a winter environment. In the village's central spaces, Firelight from communal hearths and lampposts flickered faintly, revealing silhouettes of villagers finishing final tasks. Dishes were washed and dried, wood for fires stacked with care, and tools returned to their proper places. There was an economy of motion here, every action deliberate, necessary, and unhurried, ensuring both productivity and calm. Even minor sounds, the clink of a spoon, the soft closing of a door, the gentle scrape of a broom, assumed a meditative quality, punctuating the quiet with rhythmic patterns that lulled the mind toward rest. Through narrow alleyways, snow muffled footsteps, transforming movement into barely perceptible rhythms. Occasionally, a figure passed, a villager delivering extra wood to a neighbor, a watchful elder checking windows, or a child returning a forgotten item. Each movement was quiet, deliberate, and respectful of the surrounding stillness. The landscape itself seemed to exhale in response, the snow's weight softening edges and absorbing sound, creating a cocooned, suspended quality to the night. The night sky above reflected the calm below. Stars glimmered faintly through gaps in cloud cover, their light muted by the soft diffusion of moonlight on frost and snow. The moon itself cast gentle illumination, long silver shadows stretching across fields, roads, and rooftops. Each shift of light accentuated texture and form, transforming familiar landscapes into dreamlike vistas. Observing this panorama, one could feel a profound sense of continuity, a reminder that cycles of day and night, warmth and cold, activity and rest are both eternal and intimately immediate. Within individual rooms, personal rituals enhanced the state of calm. Hands were washed in bowls of warm water, faces brushed gently, and clothing folded or arranged for the next day. Candles were extinguished carefully, the flickering glow replaced by lingering warmth and subtle light from embers. Eyes, heavy with fatigue, began to close. Breath slowed, muscles relaxed. Minds, once active with thought and worry, softened into a gentle haze of awareness and reflection. Here, in these private, intimate moments, the foundation of restorative sleep was laid, a convergence of attention, habit, and environmental rhythm.